welcome to Hollywood Temple. Let's begin our temple service today with a prayer. Please stand. Put our attention within and pray from our hearts. Heavenly Father, Mother, friend, beloved God, Jesus Christ, Bhagavan Krishna, Mahavatar Babaji, Lahiri Mahashai, Swami Shri Yukteswar, and our Guru, Paramahansa Yogananda, saints of all religions, we bow to you all. Divine Mother, bless each of us, touch our lives, that we find thy presence in all that we do. And we come to realize that thou art ever with us, guiding and inspiring us on the spiritual path. We bow to thee. Om. Peace. Amen. Please be seated. Start with a little meditation. As we often say, we begin all of our services with meditation. Meditation is really the foundation of self-realization. It's the method with which we can perceive an expression of the divine within us. And simply put, meditation is just that profound stillness where we quiet the body, where we still the restless mind that's always jumping around, where we learn to go deep, deep within that stillness. And what happens when we do is we start experiencing a deeper peace. That peace gives way to joy. That joy gives way to bliss. And bliss is the manifestation of God within us. So how to meditate? It's important that we sit upright, spine, neck, head in a straight line. We have to check our body and make sure there's no tension. Where there's tension, that's where our consciousness is. So if one of the muscles or the one part of our body is tense, try to relax it. You can do that by tensing the muscles around it and then relaxing. And try to find a place where you sit upright, where you're perfectly balanced. There's no muscular tension needed to sit upright. You find a place where you're balanced, where you're calm. Because once the body is there, then you can start working on trying to quiet the mind. Now, in Self-Realization Fellowship, we teach techniques of meditation. How to quiet the mind by concentration. And then to take that concentrated mind and go deeper within. We all do that naturally. And when we're really intensely focusing on something, even people who don't know how to meditate, if you're trying to thread a needle, that's a really, we've all done it. You have to have your eyeglasses on to do it. But as you do it, you find that you can thread a needle. Your breath becomes calm as you really put deep, deep attention on what you're doing. It's the same with practicing yoga. We learn through attention to concentrate the mind. We become better at it. It's a skill. And in that deep concentration, you find that your mind slows down. When your mind slows down, your breath slows down. Breath controls the heart. Heart slows down. These are processes of meditation that yoga teaches us. So this morning, if you know no techniques of meditation, sitting upright in that balanced and relaxed posture, focus the eyes at the point between the eyebrows. There's the spiritual eye. In India, they call it the kutastha. You focus there. Try to go deeper and deeper into that stillness, into that peaceful expression profound attentiveness and concentration. Go deeper and deeper into it. Sit very still. Concentrate on that stillness, on that peace, and try to go deeper and deeper into it. Let's begin with a chant. Door of my heart open wide, I keep for thee. Why do we chant? We chant to develop that aspect of meditation, which is also important, devotion. Sometimes you can mechanically go through meditation and you wonder, well, I don't feel any results. I don't feel anything from it. We have to put our heart into it as well as our head. The technique is about concentration. It's about attention. It's about all of these things that are up in our head. We have to get our heart involved. And we do that. Chanting is a wonderful way to do it. It's like we're asking or putting our feelings out there to God. And that combined head and heart is the path of yoga. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Wilt thou come, just for once come to me. Wilt thou come, just for once come to me. Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Wilt thou come, just for once come to me. Wilt thou come, just for once come to me. Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Well, good morning. Our service this morning is on discovering our immortal nature. Immortal nature, got T in there. It's not immortal nature, it's immortal nature. And really, our immortal nature, this is just another way of saying attaining self-realization, isn't it? We're realizing who we really are, which is something that Yogananda explained to us. We're not these mortal bodies. We're not these entities that live for a certain amount of time and then die and are heard no more. We live on, and we have all of the qualities that we find in the divine. Discovering that, well, that's the whole secret of the spiritual path, isn't it? This week we had the two services for Lahiri Mahashai. Last night was his birth ceremony, and on Tuesday night it was his final passing, the Mahasamadhi. And these weeks, they're always interesting. End of September is always a time when you concentrate on the life of Lahiri Mahashai, because the two ceremonies, his birth date and his Mahasamadhi, they occur so close together. And it really struck me this year that we often refer to Lahiri Mahashai as a householder yogi, and certainly that was true. He had a family, he had a career, he maintained everything outwardly, and yet he was this profound yogi. But there was another aspect of him. Our guru said of him that he was a yoga avatar. He was an incarnation of yoga. And when you think about it, who else would you give this Kriya Yoga key to? Who would Babaji look around and say, I want to give it to somebody who really understands it? Wouldn't you give it to a yoga avatar? Someone of Lahiri Mahashai's stature. And it's interesting because in the Autobiography of a Yogi, which is where we have most of the information that we have on Lahiri Mahashai, there's a very interesting section in which his grandson talks about him. And some of the points that he makes about Lahiri Mahashai, they're not only profound, but they deal with the subject about discovering our immortal nature. And he said, Lahiri Mahashai brought to light, clear of allegories, the scripts, the science of religion. He brought the science of religion, which is what we all know today as the teachings of Self-Realization Fellowship, that have been cleverly put out of sight in a riddle of scriptural imagery. And then he makes this point, which was often quoted by Brother Anandamoy. He liked this quote, that when you look at religion in general, it's the do's and don'ts, the moral obligation that each of us face in life. But this was the point that Lahiri Mahashai's grandson made, that he said that Lahiri Mahashai really brought into the world. He said that we know that man is usually helpless against evil passions, but these are rendered powerless, and man finds no motive for indulging in them when there dawns on him a consciousness of the superior and lasting bliss through Kriya Yoga. And this was the quote that Brother Anandamoy often gave. Here, the give up, the negation of the lower nature, synchronizes with the take up, the experience of beatitude. Without such a course, moral maxims that embody mere negatives are useless to us. The do's and the don'ts, they're useless to us because, yes, you can struggle against them. We constantly come up against them, and certainly that struggle is about the spiritual path. It's not that anyone disregards them, but the power in yoga, one of the powers in yoga, is that you naturally give up these negatives because they're replaced by something superior. Our guru puts it another way. He said the yoga meditation is the process of cultivating and stabilizing an awareness of our real nature through definite spiritual and psychophysical methods and laws by which the narrow ego, the flawed hereditary human consciousness, is displaced by the consciousness of the soul. We become aware of this consciousness within. And we started the service this morning with a meditation. Try to experience a little of that peace. When that starts going deeper and deeper, when we start grabbing a hold of that peace more and more through our deeper, ever deeper meditations, we find that that starts influencing us throughout our life. That's the consciousness that starts displacing this other consciousness, which is always at war with the negatives and positives in life, trying to do the right thing. But these mere negatives are totally useless to us. I think that on a week like this, when we look at Lahiri Mahashai's life, we realize that we've been given a science. In so many ways it's a science, the science of religion. And this is one of them, that the gradual growth of this spiritual consciousness within us is a natural progression. And that growth, it pushes away the things that are not us, that are our mortal nature. That gets pushed aside. Our immortal nature becomes something that becomes more and more real and more conscious to us as we go through life. Profound. I mean, it's I look at not only the teachings, but the teachers themselves, the line of gurus that we have. It's so balanced, it's so perfect. It was just the right incarnation of some qualities that were necessary at a particular time so that we could be sitting here this morning and talking about this perfectly balanced science of religion. Listen to this. A reporter asked Brother Anandamoy, is yoga relevant in this day and age? And this was his response. He said, absolutely. He said, people today do not understand what life is about, what the purpose of life is. So they're very confused and very frustrated. Yoga teaches that the supreme goal of life is God realization, union with God. But it does not deal just with the spiritual side of life. Yoga looks at the whole picture. It looks at the whole picture. It teaches one how to harmonize all outer roles and activities, whatever they may be, with divine law, through right action, positive attitudes, and proper use of the emotions. These two aspects of our nature, the inner or spiritual aspect and the outer material aspect, are not in conflict with each other if properly understood. They support each other and help us develop our potentials, materially, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. This is a beautiful picture that he paints of what balance really looks like. It's the inner and it's the outer interacting with the world, and it's perfectly in balance. This is yoga. This is yoga. And when you look at it from that perspective, you see what a profound subject we're dealing with. This is not just be spiritual on the side and then you carry on with your life outwardly. No, it's to be a perfectly balanced individual where that spiritual side is so much a part of you that it influences everything around you and everyone around you. You come across really spiritual people and you see how much they change your consciousness. I used to see this all the time. I worked with Dayamata for years. I was one of the secretaries that she had in her office. And Dayamata was the president of SRF. She passed on in 2010. But Dayamata had this vibration about her that when you were around her, when you were in her presence, you not only felt differently, you felt happy and joyful and just in tune. Hard to explain. And it was such a subtle change that you didn't notice it just by walking in her presence. But you'd realize that when you're around her for a little bit of time, you'd think, gee, I was a little bit depressed earlier on, and that's kind of gone now. She had that ability, that vibration, because her life was perfectly balanced. She had that inner, perfect attunement that spilled over into her interactions with others around her. And I was one of the lucky recipients from time to time and realized what a profound vibration that was and how pleasant it was to be in her company. She'd go away from Mount Washington for a period of time, and I'd look at myself, and all of a sudden I'd realize that that help and that vibration was gone. And then I'd have to struggle a little bit until I could be around her again. But how did she get that way? Because that's really, it's not only about our immortal nature, but how do you develop that? How do we get to a place where we become immortal in our consciousness and in the way we deal with life? Well, I think we have to realize certain things. One is that we're all unique. Brother Premamoy, one of the early disciples that I had the privilege of knowing, he used to make the point that he said that everyone in the world is unique. He said, just think about it. He says, no two thumbprints are exactly alike. Making the point that everyone has been created uniquely. Everyone has their own karma, their own relationship with the divine. Everyone has got a unique script. And it's why, you really can't give a formula, a recipe for spiritual success. Because everyone would have a slightly different recipe depending on their own uniqueness. There's a quote in Autobiography of a Yogi that I always marvel at. It's at the very, very end of it, last page of the autobiography. The rishis taught that each human being, now the rishis were ancient seers. Now when our guru quotes the rishis or tells what they were thinking, he's saying this is an ancient truth. This is 100% correct. He said the rishis taught that each human being has been created by God as a soul that will uniquely manifest some special attribute of the infinite before resuming its absolute identity. Each one of us is going to uniquely, so it's going to be different from everyone else before us or after us, or is going to uniquely manifest some attribute of God before it resumes its absolute identity. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So this idea that we're all unique, we have to realize that. And so that means we have to find the principles that we put into our life. We have to realize that certainly we have examples around us, and we have hints, and we have a teaching that kind of guides us. But everyone is somewhat unique. Following the principles, we find out what that uniqueness is. Everyone is unique. I was thinking that in the autobiography, Swami Sri Yukteswar gave some advice about diets. And our guru had said of him, he said, his advice to students was to follow any simple diet which proved suitable to one's constitution. Now one time, Merlini Mata, she had given some direction on, someone asked her what was Master's views on diet. And this was a very interesting response that she gave in a letter. She said Master's views on diet and health were very balanced and not in any way fanatical. Sometimes he and those of us who were around him would have little other than raw foods and juices for a period of time. But just as often, he might decide to enjoy with us for several days nothing but curries and Indian sweetmeats made with white sugar. He very much believed in the philosophy of his guru, throw the dog a bone and forget it. You could say the very basis of his health counsel was to eat natural foods, eat a balanced diet, and from all the essential food groups include plenty of raw fruits and vegetables, avoid meat, and mostly use whole grains instead of refined flours and sugars. But at the same time, not let the mind be so conditioned to having to have health foods that if you eat a little white flour or sugar once in a while, you get sick. He always stressed that the major factor in promoting and maintaining health is the right attitude of mind. So there must be common sense health habits, but above all, a positive, strong mind. Master had no tolerance for fanaticism. We saw him deliberately flout dietary rules in front of some who had the notion that it was a sin against the body to digress from health foods. This was Master's teaching. This was it. Health, and it starts in the mind. Have the mind strong. And then you do what you follow the principles, but you don't become fanatical about them. And he knew about with the students around him and the young ones around him. He knew what their likes and dislikes were. She also told the story that she didn't like this bitter gourd that they make in India. It's a special vegetable that's very bitter tasting. And it's some have a real, they like it. Mrinalini Mata did not like it. One of the worst things. And one time they were cooking some Indian food, and bitter gourd was being cooked on the side, one big pot. And when it came around to dishing up, Master dished it up to all of the devotees there, all of the food. And she came up and he gave her a little of this, little of that, and he came to the bitter gourd and he took a big scoop and he put that on her plate. And he made her eat it, just that overcome your likes and dislikes. And again, even the mental aspect of it. He had a profound understanding as to what those things were. And what people needed. Master knew this. Brother Bhaktananda used to tell the story of him at Mother Center one time, and Master was meeting with a group of devotees, some of the disciples, and he was talking they were in a circle, and he looked at them and he realized, oh yeah, these are all of the very intellectual, scientific monks. These are the ones who wanted answers to the deeper questions. And Brother was curious. And he said he kind of sidled up to the group and kind of scooched into the circle to try to get a little bit of the wisdom that was flowing from Master. And Master looked up at him and said, "This is not for you." He pushed him out. "This is not for you." Master realized this is not Brother Bhaktananda's conversation here. He doesn't need this. He's got everything he needs. He's practicing the presence and he's living a simple life. And he was happy with that. Master was. So Brother Bhaktananda soon realized everyone's unique. And the Guru treats everyone differently depending on what they need. So that uniqueness is certainly a part of what we must sort of discover and become okay with. Because we don't want to be sidling up to some group we don't belong in and finding ourselves confused or out of touch with what everyone else is getting at or something like that. We have to know what our strengths, our weaknesses, our tendencies are. Again, our Master's writings, he said, every individual is a species unto himself. Though each person is a human being, one does not resemble another one any more than the dress of a native Burmese resembles that of an American. The fabric may be essentially the same, both being made of cloth, but the design and style are significantly different. We're different. We're unique. Okay, so recognizing our uniqueness is one thing to discovering our immortal nature. The second point, I think, is we have to realize that everything that comes to us is meant to be coming to us. There's a quote from our Guru's Gita commentary where he says, the cosmic law sees to it that those duties that come to man in the natural course of life are those he is meant to perform for his own welfare. In other words, there are no mistakes. We have things coming into our life that we're supposed to face. And if we resent it, if we refuse to confront those things, or at least do our best to try to overcome them, well, we push away something that's meant to be in our life. And eventually that has to come around again. Sort of slows things up. A story here. This was from Dayamata told this story years ago. She said, Master and many of us disciples have been living most of the time at the Hermitage in Encinitas since he returned from India in 1936. But one day in 1948, he said to me, I want you to go back to Mount Washington and take charge of the administration of the society. This was very painful to me. First of all, I wanted to remain where Master was, and secondly, I had always resisted the idea of being a leader. I had only one desire in this life, to be a bhakti yogi, a devotional yogi. She wanted to meditate, she wanted to feel God's presence. For me, only devotion had meaning, only love for my God. But I packed up and went to Mount Washington to take up my new duties. Master was full of glowing ideas about the organization and organizing the work to better disseminate the Kriya Yoga message. And I too was brimming with enthusiasm. But there was a surprise in store for me. Shortly after I began this task, Guruji moved to his little ashram in the desert and took with him most of the key disciples on whom I had been counting. He left me with only a handful of people, most of whom were wholly untrained. Now, one time I heard her tell this story, and she said she was left with a bunch of do-nothings. And so kind of said more than the wholly untrained. You know how it is. You have there's a certain group of people that can help on certain projects, have the capacity. And if you take all of those away, then this all fell on Dayamana. So my first reaction was, this is impossible. Then I resigned myself to the fact that Master knew best. But then another blow fell. Master came in from the desert for a short time and called me to him. I think we ought to have a convocation next year, he said. I want you to organize it. I was shocked. This time he's gone too far, I thought. So this was 1950 was the first convocation. So this was, probably late 1949 when Master asked her to do this. Master, I said, I cannot do it. It's physically impossible. I could see so many reasons why he should not ask me to assume this responsibility. I knew nothing about organizing convocations. There were no personnel to do the work. He had taken them all through the desert. And besides, I was completely burdened down by the enormous demands of supervising the offices, correspondence, centers, financial, ashram matters. Master returned to the desert that night, and I could see that he was very unhappy with my attitude. I went to my room in tears, for I could not bear to displease him. But this time I was determined not to give in, because I felt my reasons were fully justifiable. I tried to meditate, I tried to sleep, but I couldn't. My mind was too upset. So I began to analyze my attitude. As I introspected that night in my room and objectively analyzed why I was so distressed, I had to admit the truth of the matter. I was not unable to take on this task Master had asked of me, but I was unwilling to do so. That was really what was wrong with me. To my mind, the reasons why I could not organize the convocation had seemed justified. But now I realized that I was just rationalizing my own unwillingness to assume such a great responsibility. The moment I recognized the true motive behind my resisting his request, my consciousness changed. You have given your life to God unconditionally, I told myself. You cannot say to your guru, I will accept this discipline from you, but not that one. If you have such an attitude, then how can you think your devotion is unconditional? I resolved that I would do what he had asked, and instantly a great peace came over my soul. Before I fell asleep, I determined that in the morning I would get in touch with Master at the desert and promise him to do my best in organizing the convocation that he wanted. Master was always attuned to our state of consciousness. Even though he was 150 miles away, he was aware of the struggle I was going through. The first thing the next morning, he telephoned from the desert. I quickly said to him, Master, please forgive me for my unwillingness. My attitude was wrong. I don't know how to organize a convocation, and I confess that I already feel overburdened, but I promise you this, I will do my best. I can never forget how sweetly he replied, that is all I ask of you. This is what makes a saint right there. This is what makes a saint. Often we think, how does a saint manifest the divine, miraculous powers that we hear about? No, it's in the trenches of everyday life when the attitude goes back to proper behavior and overcomes the little things that all of us struggle with. And this was Dayamata to her core. You know, she was always always coming to the truth of what would Master want here, and then she would follow. No small thing. It takes a tremendous, tremendous amount of strength. And she concludes this story saying, well, we had the convocation, and it was a success. And furthermore, my world did not come to an end. From that experience, I learned what great strength and blessings come from willingness. So we're all unique, but we have to be willing to meet the things that come to us in life, because they come to us for a reason. Now you could say, well, Dayamata, she was blessed to have the guru there, giving her instructions, telling her to take on the convocation. Certainly. But Dayamata, she earned this somewhere in the past, and she had the capacity to be around a soul like that, and to be pushed to the absolute limit, and then to say, yes, even so, I'll do my best. But every one of us finds that life, that our karma, that our guru places things in front of us, and they're there for a reason. And unless we get to a point where we can at least say, okay, how's my attitude on this? Is there anything that I need to change? Rather than blaming all the circumstances around us, and I'm talking from experience here. It's not that I'm the ability to look at ourselves and say, okay, what is it that I need to change here? Why are these things obstacles in my life? If we can't do that, then how are we going to discover our immortal nature? I wanted to read the Gita reading for today because it has very much to do with the subject today. And the sloka is, for sanctification of the ego, yogis perform actions solely with the body, the mind, discrimination, or even the senses, forsaking attachment. And our Guru's explanation of this passage and the depth of it, he said, attachment is the offspring of desire. Attachment then gives birth to further desire. Attachment is not possible without desire, but desiring can be initiated without an obvious prior prompting of attachment. This is because of the underlying ego's intrinsic attachment to things material. Every time the egoistic person entertains a desire, he puts a condition on himself that he will have to fulfill. Every desire is a burden that he will have to work out at some future time. Even a forgotten desire continues to lurk behind the screen of his subconsciousness, ready at an opportune moment to ensnare its host and exact its dues. With every desire, a man travels farther from the natural peace of his soul, because desire's indiscriminate temperament makes him forget the purpose of his existence. He is led by attachment, born of desire, to cling to those things that are incompatible with his soul's nature. He prays for things that are even dangerous to its peace. Further, our Guru says, when a devotee discovers his life's duties, he should perform them with intense interest to please God and the Guru, without being attached to the fruits of action. A true lover of the Lord is happy to succeed in any of his divine adventures, but when he is thwarted or opposed, he does not weep and lose enthusiasm. He tries with deeper interest and stronger effort to achieve what he previously failed to accomplish for God, unless his guru directs him to do otherwise. That's really at the heart of the story we told of Dayamata. And that's the way she was. I remember Brother Premamoy, he used to talk about attachment a little bit, and he'd always tell the story that he remembered early on in the ashram when he was around Dayamata. And he was very impressed with her. He realized that she was somebody who really understood and manifested the teachings of our Guru. But he said every week, one day a week, Dayamata would go out into the garden. She had a time to do that in those days. When I knew her, she was just so busy, so taken up with all of the activities. But for the balance, she would go out into the garden and do some weeding or something. It was an afternoon or something once a week. And he remembered one time when he was out there helping her, she was weeding a section at Mount Washington, just pulling weeds in a bed somewhere. He said that his job was to take the weeds that she was pulling and go empty them back behind the administration building and to bring the wheelbarrow back. He said he could hardly keep up with her because she'd fill a wheelbarrow, he'd rush back, dump the weeds, come back, and the second wheelbarrow would already be full. And he used that that was her enthusiasm. Yes, I mean, she was, you could say she was good at weeding. No, but she was enthusiastic about whatever she was doing, and she was doing it with the right purpose and the right attention and the right concentration. And that spilled over into everything she did. She was just enthusiastic and concentrated and really an example of what that right attitude looks like, no matter what the Guru asks of you. Whether it's starting the first convocation or going out and weeding that bed there with all the weeds in it. You know, you learn a lot from that. And I saw that same quality in Dayamata when she was at her desk. She'd just go from one thing to another. Her concentration was unbelievable. She would take one problem, put it in front of her, read through it, give some direction on it, do something with it, show how to move it along. Okay, then move on to the next thing, the same intensity, the same. That's why she had so many secretaries. You know, the secretaries could barely come up for air, you know, because when Dayamata was working, it was like she'd work through one and another, and you'd go back with just a stack of things to do. Brother Pramoy once said, "Do everything with the same enthusiasm." That's not easy. This is the secret to developing non-attachment, unattached to the fruits of your actions. It is the whole essence of the Gita, the essence of a life as a yogi. You know? Do everything with the same enthusiasm. How do you do that? He used to say, well, you do it for God. You do it for something higher than yourself. What does that look like? He once told the postulates there, he said, what if you walked by and saw people down in a ditch digging, and you looked down, you saw your mother down there with a shovel. Wouldn't you be the first to jump in and say, no, I've got this? He said, it's the same feeling, the same concept. If you're doing something for somebody greater than you, then you put aside your likes and dislikes, you put aside your attachments, and you work willingly. You work willingly. And it manifests in so many different ways. I remember on the third floor of the Mother Center, there's a beautiful, model of the Taj Mahal. The different pieces are carved, and on the top of the columns, there's a little brass finial, a little brass point that sits on the top of each finial. One time I was up there, and I realized that one of them was a little bit crooked. I went over and I wiggled it, and sure enough, it was loose. It came out of the... And as I was doing that, Anandamata walked by. She was carrying a big bunch of papers with her. And I said, Anandamata, this looks like this is not attached up here, this finial. And I said, you could lose it. We could lose it. And I said, would you like me to get it glued? Would you like me to fix it? And she said, no, I'll take care of it. She said, put it on top of so I put it on top of the papers, and off she went. And sure enough, I came back a few days later, and there it was. I checked it, and yeah, somebody had come by and they'd fixed it. And I thought, yeah, that's another aspect of non-attachment. Like, everything is important. Surely important and unimportant are unknown to the Lord, lest for want of a pin, the cosmos collapse. That's a sentence you read in Autobiography of a Yogi. It's the same enthusiasm no matter what you're doing. Whether you're dealing with all of these papers that she had in her hand that were probably pretty intense and really problems that were intractable, many of them. Okay, but with all of that, yeah, put the finial on top and I'll make sure that it gets fixed. important and unimportant, surely unknown to the Lord, lest for want of a pin the cosmos collapse. You know, this is what we can do. This and meditation, it's the outward and the inward. While we're trying to balance both, we work on both, huh? We work on our meditations, we try to go deeper, we practice our Kriya, and certainly this accelerates our take-up of our divine nature. But we also watch our outward life and try to replace the things that we're not doing correctly. The refusals to organize a convocation, for instance. And we make adjustments so that we can start taking this guidance, taking this help, really, that we're getting from the divine, and moving us forward, not only in our spiritual life when we sit to meditate, but in our outward active life. Please stand, we'll have our healing technique. Let us pray. Divine Mother, Thou art omnipresent. Thou art in all Thy children. Thou art with each one of us. Manifest Thy healing presence in our bodies, in our minds, and in our souls. Let us raise the arms and chant Om for healing of the body. Om. For healing of the mind. Om. For healing of the soul. Once more for world peace and harmony. Let us pray together. Heavenly Father, Mother, Friend, beloved God, Jesus Christ, Bhagavan Krishna, Mahavatar Babaji, Lahiri Mahashai, Swami Shri Yukteswar, and our Guru, Paramahansa Yogananda, saints of all religions, we bow to you all. Divine Mother, may Thy love shine forever on the sanctuary of our devotion, and may we be able to awaken Thy love in all hearts. Om. Peace. Amen. May God and Master bless us all.